Futures trading involves risk and is not suitable for all investors. Content provided in this segment is meant for educational purposes and is not a solicitation to buy or sell commodities.
Hello and welcome to the April 24th edition of Basis Loaded with Joe Schmit. I am Joe Schmit. This episode, as always, is produced by Paige Driscoll, and this is the NFL Draft edition of Basis Loaded. After this draft, if Minnesota moves up as expected, they, the Bears, and the Detroit Lions should all have Pro Bowl quarterbacks. So exciting times for the NFC Central. What better way to celebrate than with the latest from the NDPSR report? Let's start with butter. This butter number coming in at $292.41. That's a -1 to the CME 1 week average of $293.65. So the manufacturer had to discount to move weight and didn't get a whole lot done. This volume is disappointingly low, coming in under 2.4 million pounds. So negative basis in butter with 8 loads traded at the CME last week. And at that negative basis and the volume at the CME, still only able to capture less than expected sales. So at the high end of the butter range, as we approach this $3 level, disappointing basis and disappointing volume in butter. Up next in cheese, let's start with the blocks, $151.14. That's a nice price. That's a +6 to the CME 1 week average of $145.55. The CME to get to that $145.55 was up 3.5. Here in the NDPSR, just up a little over 2.5. So as you would expect, as prices of the CME start to increase, and of course this is just the beginning of the increase that we saw at the CME, prices on the NDPSR are lagging a little bit. +6 is well above our expected 2 to 4 cent positive basis in blocks, and at that higher than expected basis, the manufacturer was able to move close to our expected 12 million pounds, falling just a little bit short at 11,990,000. We did trade 23 loads on the CME last week at essentially a 161.50 price, which probably went a long way in pulling that basis up, as the trades at the CME last week were significantly higher than the benchmark for contract sales used last week. So CME, the 23 loads, probably pulled that block basis up and got us close to our expected volume. All in all, I'd have to call it a win for the manufacturer in blocks. Up next, barrels, $155.55. That represents a +4 to the CME 2 week average of $151.27.50. Now, the CME was up 6 2/3 cents. The NDPSR only up 4. So again, that theme of rapidly rising prices at the CME is slow to translate here to the NDPSR. +4 is at the low end of our expected 4 to 6 cent positive barrel basis. And again, I think that we were helped in the barrel by the 23 loads that were traded at the CME last week at essentially 161.25 minus freight. So we traded a lot of weight last week at an elevated level. And even with all that extra weight going in at above market prices, still only able to achieve a 4 cent positive basis, maybe a little bit of a disappointment. What's further disappointment is this volume, short of 12 million pounds and well short of our expected NDPSR volume. So basis a little bit of a disappointment and volume a little bit of a disappointment, kind of running the opposite of the block market in the barrels this week on the NDPSR. In whey, this week's price is reported at $42.75. That's a +3.5 to the CME 1 week average of $39.10, and a little bit of a decrease from prior week's NDPSR, down from $44.26 last week to $42.75. So the decreases that we're seeing in CME spot whey are slowly getting into the NDPSR report. And if you look back at that April 6 number of $44.69, it looks like the manufacturer had to discount nearly 2 cents under prior week's NDPSR to get volume moved this week. But they were able to move a lot of volume at that discounted level, almost 6.7 million pounds. So the manufacturer doing their job, getting weight moved, even if they have to discount a shade. And that dry whey volume is moving in pretty big amounts at a discounted level. And then lastly, non-fat 115.20. That's a +2 to the CME 1 week average of 113.35. We traded 16 loads on the CME last week, and +2 is our expected basis for non-fat. 20 million is our expected volume. We had expected basis and a little bit higher than expected volume. So a nice job by the manufacturer in the mid-teens in non-fat. So this is week 3 of 4 for the April pricing period. Currently getting April class 3 at 1552 with April class 4 all the way up at 2019. If you carry current CME equivalents all the way through the 5-week May pricing cycle, currently getting May class 3 of 1775, May class 4 at 2015. We'll see what they have in store for us in the weeks to come. Until then, on behalf of Paige and the entire EverAg Insights team, I'm Joe. See you next week.